Hey guys, it's Tearless here. Welcome back to the Sanctum of the Light for the final time. We have already gone through part 1 of this 2-video series looking at Protection Paladins, which are the final spec for Paladins we are looking at regarding their changes coming in World of Warcraft Legion. In this video, the second video, we'll be looking at the PvE and PvP talents coming to a Protection Paladin in World of Warcraft Legion. I will say, just looking at my preliminary run-through of all talents, basically the Protection Paladin tree is completely brand new. There are, rough count really quickly, only 4 abilities that have been retained in the entire talent tree. As you guys know, the talent tree is 7 rows, 21 talents deep, and only 4 of them retained. So you have 17 new talents as a Protection Paladin in your PvP tree, and in your PvE tree, excuse me. And then inside your PvP tree, you have another set of, looks like there's 24 talents, if I did that correctly, 18 talents. That you also have in addition to that. So there's a lot of new talents coming for Protection Paladin, so let's go ahead and jump into them and take a look at what we have. In the first tier, we have this new ability called First Avenger. Increases the damage of Avenger shield by 50% and increases the chance for its remaining cooldown to be reset by abilities and talents by 50%, but it now only hits one target. So basically, this is a single target focused talent. So if you want to be more of a main tank, single target focused, not AoE focused, and you want something like Grand Crusader to have more power and able to reset your Avenger shield more, deal more damage, this is the talent that you're taking, because you are sacrificing the fact that you were able to hit 3 targets, and now you're only able to hit 1 target, and that is through this First Avenger talent. So maybe this may be the option that you want to take if you are a main tank and you're only dealing with 1 boss. However, if you're going above 2, I would say 2 targets at a time, that's when you're going to want to probably not take this ability and switch to one of the others. Speaking of which, the others are, looking on the right hand side here, we have Crusader's Judgment. Judgment can also trigger Grand Crusader. So Grand Crusader is the main option that actually allows you to get the refresh on Avenger Shield. Taking damage from melee attacks allows you to activate Grand Crusader, and then using Hammer of the Righteous is another way of being able to activate the Grand Crusader. So that's how I get my procs from Avenger Shield, is from that right there, is using Hammer of the Righteous and then taking damage. Now, I can take Crusader's Judgment, and now all of a sudden my Judgment will also have the ability to reset Avenger's Shield, and my Avenger Shield will be able to hit multiple targets. So if you're looking at the difference between First Avenger and Crusader's Judgment, you basically, with Crusader's Judgment, well, I should say with First Avenger, you have a massive increase in your ability to reset the cooldown Avenger Shield, which means a lot more single target damage going out. If you choose Crusader's Judgment, I would say that potential for the reset of Avenger Shield gets cut in half. The potential from the baseline. So there's the baseline, the potential, and then the maximum. The maximum would be First Avenger. The potential is in between. You increase your potential through something like Crusader's Judgment, because you also have Judgment that can create, that can trigger Grand Crusader. So every 5.6 seconds, you have a chance of being able to get the reset on Avenger Shield, and you're going to be wanting to use Judgment on cooldown almost all the time, because it reduces the cooldown of your Shield of Righteous by 1 second or 2 seconds on a critical strike. So this is kind of, a choice of, do I trade in my AoE damage for even more procs of Avenger Shield, which means more single target damage, or do I go ahead and stick with Crusader's Judgment, where I already get an increase because Judgment is now affected by Grand Crusader, but I don't get as much of a buff as I would out of First Avenger. That's kind of the choice you have there. Personally, in a PvP option, I would choose Crusader's Judgment. However, in a PvE option, if you're really big on single target tanking, like that's your main job, you may want to do something like First Avenger to kind of help out with the DPS on your team. The third option here is Bastion of Light, which immediately grants 3 charges of Shield of Righteous. Now, in a PvE situation, I don't know if this would be the most popular option, because if you time it right, you technically will have Shield of Righteous up, the damage reduction from it up consistently at all times, no matter what. You should never have it down. However, especially if we're talking about the reduction that you'll get from Judgment, you should 100% of the time always have Shield of Righteous up, no matter what. So in a PvE situation, I just don't see this being taken. It makes no sense compared to what you can get extra damage out of First Avenger, or being able to possibly get more AoE and damage procs out of Crusader's Judgment. So, to be honest, I don't see why you would do it. The only reason you would is from a talent we'll see at the very end, at the 100. I have it selected right now. It's called Seraphim. And so that's the only reason why I would think Bastion of Light will have some uses. Otherwise, I think your choices for both PvE and PvP are easily going to be First Avenger. If you don't really like the AoE damage, you just want to do massive single target, or Crusader's Judgment. In the 30 tier, we have one of those abilities that I said would be making a return, which is Holy Shield. Holy Shield has now been brought all the way from the 100 tier up to the 30 tier. I like this. Holy Shield's been in the Paladin talent tree forever. The old Holy Shield would increase your block chance by 15%. This only does it by 10%, and it allows you to block spells. This is something I see PvPers really liking. Because being able to block spells is pretty potent out in a PvP situation with all the casters out there. So I can see this being really good as a PvP option, and to be honest, I see this as being the PvP option. However, there is a challenger to it. Our next option is going to be Blessed Hammer. Now, this was alluded to slightly when we talked about the talent tree for a Protection Paladin for the artifact weapon, because they actually mentioned this. Now you will understand what this does. Basically, it replaces your Hammer of the Righteous, and it throws out a Blessed Hammer that spirals outward. If you play Diablo, this will start to sound a little familiar. Dealing 33,000 holy damage to enemies that it hits, and causing them to deal 15% less damage to you on their next auto attack. So, you're going to see this here. It's going to look very similar. Also, do you know that it has 3 charges instead of 2? They don't mention that in the actual tooltip here, but you now have 3 charges instead of 2. And when I start using this here, you're going to see why it looks exactly like a Crusader ability from your Diablo 3, if you've played Diablo 3. So I'll use it right here. As you can see, I spin the hammer out and deal damage from a distance. As you can, it spreads out really far. I'm going to go out way in the open here so that you can see just how far this spreads. I'm going to go right on top here, and we're going to use it, and you can see how it just spins around and around until it hits all the targets in the range. So, and it does last for quite a while. I'm not quite sure the entire range of it. Let's see just how far this goes. We'll follow it around. So that's a pretty good range. It looks like it spreads all the way around, about out to 10 yards. It looked like it was behind me. So if I were to stand about right here, which I think is about 10 yards, and launch this, let's see if this hammer hits that target in the back there. It should dissipate right at the end there. Yep! So we're talking about 10 yards right here on its maximum distance, and it makes all the targets around you deal 15% less damage on their next auto attack. This is what I see to be the PvE option of choice, without question. Consecrated Hammer has some portions of it that will make things life easier, but I think for the most part, Blessed Hammer is going to be the choice. With that being said, let's look at Consecrated Hammer. So Consecrated Hammer basically causes your Hammer of Righteous to have no cooldown. So we've gone from 2 charges to 3 charges to 0 charges. It has no cooldown. Hammer of the Righteous and Shield of Righteous and Light of Protector now all gain the benefit of Consecration. So basically what this does is it removes Consecration from the rotation. Unless you're trying to deal more damage, there's no reason for you to use it anymore. You just go ahead and use Hammer of the Righteous all the time. Now, I can see PvPers using this, because PvPers wouldn't want to have to deal with having Consecration down, and then using an ability like Hammer of the Righteous, and then so forth. Honestly, I can see them only popping down a Consecration in order to get off a stronger Light of the Protector, and a stronger Shield of the Righteous. I don't see them really doing it in the case of trying to buff your Hammer of the Righteous, having a small cooldown on it. I really don't see that happening. But as of right now, this is what you can do for an option. However, Hammer of the Righteous doesn't really do that much damage. So we'll see. If it's a very large AoE boss, think about Blessed Hammer. Blessed Hammer on a very large AoE boss is going to hit the target many times, and it deals many times, and it deals holy damage on top of that. So if you've got a kind of a boss with a large hitbox, this Blessed Hammer is going to hit that target many times, and it's going to continue to hit it and deal 15% less damage to you. Honestly, I just don't see Blessed Hammer being beat out by anything in terms of a PvE option for a Paladin. Now, for PvP, that's debatable. You could say Hammer of the Righteous, Consecrated Hammer may be the option, mostly due to the fact of that Shield of the Righteous can now be used without, or you can use Shield of the Righteous without Consecrate and still get the full buff. However, you have to compare that to Holy Shield, and that Holy Shield can now block spells. In all honesty, I see Holy Shield being taken by PvPers, and then Blessed Hammer being taken by PvEers. I don't see PvPers taking Blessed Hammer, because Blessed Hammer basically, you can avoid it, and so it just ends up not being a very good option. So, Holy Shield most likely for PvPers, Blessed Hammer for PvEers, and then Consecrated Hammer will fit in there somewhere, but as of right now, I don't think Consecration is that detrimental to merit just kind of trying to take Consecration out of the rotation. I just don't really see it. Maybe on really high mobile boss fights. If the boss is extremely mobile, maybe Consecrated Hammer will have its uses. Otherwise, Blessed Hammer, I think, will be the choice in PvE. In the 45 tier, this is the tier that used to be the 30 tier, and it is essentially returning. All of these are returning in name with slight tweaks. Blinding Light has its cooldown reduced by 30 seconds, so it's now a 1.5 minute cooldown down from a 2-minute cooldown. Repentance has a huge change that I think is going to make it extremely popular in dungeons at the very least. In addition to it, doing its normal, basically its CC, it will now deal 25% of the target's health in damage over the next 1 minute. So not only are you going to be able to do damage, to CC the target, but you'll be able to deal damage to them equal to 25% of their health if they're, CC'd for that long. That alone makes me think that anybody doing some mythic dungeons and whatnot will be using Repentance without question. For PvPers, it's going to be more along the lines of something like Blinding Light and Fist of Justice, which, by the way, Fist of Justice has changed. It used to be just a flat reduction in the cooldown on Hammer of Justice. Now it's different. Hammer of Justice is reduced in cooldown by 10 seconds each time you use Judgment. So, for a Ret Paladin that also has this Fist of Justice derivative, this doesn't really mean much, because a Judgment is different depending on the class. I'm not sure if it'll show up here, but Judgment for a Holy Paladin is 5.6 second cooldown. Retribution, I'm not sure if it's still the same. It's 5.6 second cooldown. So I think at one point they may have nerfed the cooldown of Judgment, or maybe it's just not showing up. I can check real quick by changing it. But at one point it turned out to where Fist of Justice was basically the same thing as the old one, in that the amount of judgments that you could get off ended up being the same amount anyways if you used it straight on cooldown. Yes, as you can see here, Judgment is 11.3 second cooldown in Ret form. So you really are not getting anything out of Fist of Justice there. And then as a Holy Paladin, Judgment ends up being an 11.3 second cooldown. So things are drastically different as far as a prop paladin is concerned, and that's because prop paladins have a judgment cooldown of only 5.65 seconds. Okay, that's huge. That means that in 15 seconds you are able to reduce it down to a 30-second cooldown, and then if you do it again, by 20 seconds you will have reduced it down to a 20-second cooldown. You will have reduced its cooldown by 40 seconds. So this actually ends up being better than Live's version of the Fist of Justice, whereas the others kind of equate it to the original version of Fist of Justice. In PvP, this would probably be my favorite choice. Blinding Light is really powerful, but I don't like a 1.5 minute cooldown, and as a tank, as a healer this is more appealing, but as a tank it's not as appealing. In PvP, I think Repentance without question is going to be your choice no matter what. In PvP, I probably would go with Fist of Justice, because you're going to be firing off that Judgment every single chance you get anyways, so that you can get reductions on your Shield of Righteousness. So, that is my opinion of the 45 tier. I think PvPers, Fist of Justice, PvEers, Repentance, easy, and then Blinding Light will fit in there somewhere. Probably never in PvE, but it will in some PvP matches. On the 60 tier, I already talked about Blessing of Salvation in the first video. I made the mistake. I thought it was baseline, but it's actually a talented ability. That's why I didn't actually have it on my list of new abilities or changed abilities, and that's because it's actually a talent. But you can place a Blessing on a party or raid member, temporarily removing all threat from the target and causing all additional threat regeneration to be transferred to you last 10 seconds. I believe this has been in the game for a long time now. I can't remember if it was taken out for some reason and then brought back in, or it's just now being moved to a talent. But as you can see, I can use Blessing of Salvation, and it's just threat transfer. You'll never see this used in PvP at all. So this is not a talent for PvP. This is something strictly for PvE, and we'll see how it, how useful it is in PvE compared to these other options. These other options we have are Retribution Aura, a good one we haven't seen in a very, very long time. Remember when it used to be, instead of a seal bar on top of, the Paladins, it was actually an aura bar? Well, this is a long time ago. Retribution Aura is back. I think the last time we saw it was maybe Burning Crusade. It's been that long. It's back. You deal 1700 holy damage to any enemy whose melee attack strikes a non-tank party or raid member within 60 yards. So it's got an insane range. And this will just allow you to just have a lot of, just damage in general. It depends on the PvE fight. I think for the most part, this will not be used as a PvE talent. But this has great uses in PvP when there's melee all over the place. You're going to see a lot more tanks in PvP. So I think you're going to see a lot more melee all over the place. And then when they do melee damage, you're going to be constantly, with your aura, dealing damage back to them at all times. It's your AoE thorns, so to say. I think it's pretty potent. I think a lot of PvPers are really going to consider using this. They're not going to be using Blessing of Salvation for sure, so there's a lot of PvPers who will consider using this. The last option here is called Blessing of Spell Warding. It's a 3-minute cooldown, so it's pretty large. Places a blessing on a party or raid member, protecting them from all magical attacks for 10 seconds. Cannot be used on a target with forbearance. Causes forbearance for 30 seconds. So, this likely will be the option in PvP. It could be an option in PvE, but I think for the most part PvE will be between Blessing of Salvation and Blessing of Spell Warding, and then PvP it'll probably either be Retribution or Blessing of Spell Warding. Definitely in rated, I think for sure this is going to be the option. People will choose this. Let's go ahead and use this so we can see what it looks like. That is Blessing of Spell Warding there. That's pretty awesome. And you're immune to all magical attacks. So it is kind of the difference. It's a, sorry, excuse me. it is the opposite of your Blessing of Protection. And as you notice in the tooltip, it actually replaces your Blessing of Protection. So that is the big downside to this, is that yes, you're getting something here that defends magical attacks, but you're giving up your Blessing of Protection on the other side. Now, Blessing of Protection has a 5-minute cooldown, where this has a 3-minute cooldown, so you're going to kind of have to make your choice there. And you can go into a fight and you can be like, okay, you know, there's a lot of, this boss here has a lot of magic damage, so I'm going to go with Blessing of Spell Warding. Otherwise, you probably want to stick with Blessing of Salvation instead. I think what's going to happen with this 60 tier is whether you're in a raid or you're in a raided battleground or a battleground or an arena, you're going to be able to look at the other side. I'm not sure if you can do that in arena, but you can in battlegrounds. Take a look at what they've got coming at you. At least in unrated battlegrounds you can. Take a look at what's coming at you. And you can be like, okay, they are heavy on magic damage. In both PvE and PvP, you will see people take Blessing of Spell Warding. If they are heavy on melee, you will see PvEers take Blessing of Salvation. You will see PvPers take Retribution Aura, without question. For the non-rated battlegrounds, people may just automatically stick with Retribution Aura all the time. But for something that's more coordinated, like rated battlegrounds, Blessing of Spell Warding may be taken. But then, remember, you are always sacrificing your Blessing of Protection at the same time. So it's going to be up to you to kind of weigh those two options and see which one's the best. So, a lot to think of in that 60 tier, which makes things really interesting for a Protection Paladin. Me, honestly, I'm probably just going to stick with Retribution Aura and, you know, use Blessing of Protection when needed, as opposed to Blessing of Spell Warding instead. The cool thing about Blessing of Spell Warding is that the visual is very noticeable at first, but after that you don't really notice that it's on a target, so someone can blow a whole bunch of magical damage into a target and not even realize it. With that being said, let's look at the 75 tier. We have a passive on the right hand side. This is basically for PvE. When you use Divine Shield, you also taunt all targets within 15 yards for 8 seconds. So, this is awesome. To my knowledge, I haven't really raid tanked ever as a Protection Paladin, and my limited scope of dungeon prot tanking is limited. But to my knowledge, when you use Divine Shield, basically your aggro pool just depletes underneath your feet. It just goes away. With this, that changes. You run in there, things are looking real dire for your team. Divine Shield, you're taunting everyone within 15 yards. You're able to keep them on yourself. The healers are able to get things back under control, and then you can go from there. That's pretty awesome. So that's a really good option to have. Something you, once again, like Blessing of Salvation, something you won't see in PvP, but it's a great option for PvE. Knights Templar reduces the cooldown of your Divine Seed by 50% and reduces all damage taken while mounted on your Divine Steed by 20%. This is something that could be taken in PvE, but honestly this is something that's just more fun for PvP. A 22.5 second cooldown on Divine Steed where you can run in there and just cause havoc. That's awesome. I love it. I love every little bit of it, and honestly I can see PvPers taking this without question. However, there is Hand of the Protector. Calls down a light to heal a friendly target for 25% of the missing health. 9.4 second for 2 second cooldown. So, it replaces Light of the Protector, and it allows you to cast this on someone else other than yourself. So, this is something that can be taken in both PvE and PvP. For PvE, this means you get more self-healing more often, okay? And you're able to put it on a different target if you need to. However, in PvP, I don't know if the cooldown is worth it that much. Yes, it can help other targets who are maybe getting hit pretty hard, because 25% of their missing health is pretty strong. That's a lot of healing for someone who's not supposed to be a healer. But we'll see how it plays out. I honestly, in a rated setting where people are coordinated, I can see Hand of the Protector being taken. Whereas in an unranked setting, something like Knights Templar would be much more fun and probably more useful overall, just because people are uncoordinated and so forth. And you take less damage while mounted for 20 seconds. However, when you look at the PvE side of things, I think all three of these are great options. Hand of the Protector gives you a lower cooldown on a self-heal, and you can heal another target if you need to in an emergency situation. Final Stand gives you that AoE taunt if things get dire in combat. And then when you think about it, every 22 seconds, you get a 3-second damage, 20% damage debuff, or you take 20% less damage while on your Divine Steed. I mean, you can set your Divine Steed up and not move anywhere and just still attack. I mean, you can do that. There's no problem doing that, and you take less damage for it. So it's definitely going to be an option. All three of these are great options in PvE. In PvP, Final Stand really probably won't be taken, and then Hand of the Protector will be taken probably only in a rated setting, in arenas, something like that, whereas Knights Templar will be something that'll be more in an unrated setting along those lines. With that being said, we move to the 90 tier. In the 90 tier, we have Judgments of the Light. This is just like the one it is for a Holy Paladin. Judgment now applies Judgment of Light to the target, causing the next 40 successful attacks against the target to heal the attacker for 4,700. This effect can only occur once per 1 second on each target. So, basically chuck my hammer out, and there you go. I have 30 seconds on this target. And then, with a 5-second cooldown, it's pretty amazing. It's actually better than it is than it is for a Holy Paladin, because Holy Paladin has that 11.3 second cooldown, whereas every 5 seconds, I'm able to do this with a Paladin and get it on multiple targets. It's just now coming off this first target that I did. So you're able to spread it out and able to kind of put out a lot of healing, so to say, on many different targets at a time. Your second option here is going to be Consecrated Ground. Up to 6 allies standing within your consecration receive 1900 healing every 9 seconds, and enemies within your consecration also have 50% reduced movement speed. I think this is going to be a great option in PvP, something that probably won't be used in PvP very often. So we'll go ahead and use this right here so you can see what it does. I'll go ahead and use it, and it puts it down, and then everyone that's in range of this will be healed per second for 1900. It's a small heal, but it does heal. The big thing, though, is that with this large area of effect for consecration, it snares everyone, and I think that's going to be the big thing that pushes it towards PvP, as opposed to something like Judgments of the Light. Judgment of the Light will do more healing as you're successfully attacking the target. But, you can look at your team makeup and be like, well, we have a melee, a lot of fast auto attackers. Judgment of the Light's going to be really powerful. But at the same time, Consecrated Ground will snare everyone for 50%. I think that's going to be, just as strong. It's your own personal, tar trap as a Protection Paladin. So I think it's going to be strong in that regard. So in PvP, I think you're looking at both of these to be an option. For PvP, I do not see them taking this last option because it's kind of a positional requirement type thing. This is very interesting for PvE, though. This is called Aegis of Light. Channels an Aegis of Light that protects you and all allies standing within 10 yards behind you for 6 seconds, reducing all damage taken by 20%. It's a 5-minute cooldown. This is a huge cooldown for only 6 seconds of protection for only 20% reduced damage. I'm not quite sure why they do this. It is a it doesn't have a cap in the amount of targets you're doing, so that's why I think this is really only going to be used in a PvE situation, and it's going to be used in a situation in which, oh my gosh, big burst coming up, okay, we'll have everyone, group up so we can heal as best we can, but then we can also have our prop pally stand out in front with his big 5-minute cooldown, launch it out, and also allow us to take less damage. And I think that's what you'll see it used for. In PvP, I think you'll see either Consecrated Ground or Judgment of Light, and then in PvE you're going to see either Judgment of Light or Aegis of Light, but most likely you'll probably see Aegis of Light, because Judgment of Light, if you have one Holy Paladin in the group, they'll be able to keep this up no problem. I think it might run down before you can get another Judgment off, so maybe it'll be nice to have a Paladin with this so you can have more consistent healing. but I think this is going to be, you know, it's going to have more uses depending on the boss. Now let me show this to you. This reminds me of a little bit of fifth movie of Harry Potter. Dumbledore basically just sits there with his shield. Voldemort launches all of his glass shards at Dumbledore, and he just shields himself and Harry. This is kind of what it reminds me of. He just kind of sits, launches the shield to the ground, and then protects everyone behind him. So we'll go ahead and show this off right here. There's a large 5-minute cooldown, a massive shield, and I'm just protecting everyone behind me. That's really cool looking, and that was the first thing that came to mind when I thought about it. I'm sure there are other movies portraying that as well, but that's what it reminded me of when I saw that. But you can basically see how you just put your shield down and everyone behind you is protected with 20% less damage, and it gives the healers a whole lot less. It takes a lot of stress off of them as they try and heal someone through a really stressful boss phase. And so that's why I can really see this ability being taken over the others in terms of PvE, but for PvP definitely. Consecrated Ground, I think, probably for me, and then there's also Judgment of Light, which is pretty powerful. In Consecrated Ground, remember, it helps in PvP because if you want to be taking something like Holy Shield and you're not going to have Consecrated Hammer, you want to have all the buffs that you get from having Consecration on the ground, dealing with Shield of Righteous, and what would actually be Hammer of the Righteous, and so forth. Combining all of those together just makes things more powerful, and the more you bulk up your Consecration, the better. So just take note of that. With that, we have this final tier. We have Righteous Protector. Shield of the Righteous reduces the remaining cooldown of Light of Protector and Avenging Wrath by 3 seconds. So, we'll go ahead and click this here. I'm going to use Avenging Wrath, so I can be all bossy right here. And we'll go ahead and use Light of the Protector as well. I have Hand of the Protector up. I should probably just knock off that for a second. Light of the Protector there, and then we will begin to use Shield of the Righteous, and we'll see it knock down the cooldown pretty quickly. You saw Light of the Protector jump down there really quickly, and even Avenging Wrath has already been knocked down quickly to almost a third gone. So it does get your cooldowns up faster. On the right hand side, we have Last Defender. Each enemy within 8 yards reduces the damage that you take and increases the damage that you deal by 3%. This effect has diminishing returns. So this would be great in an AoE fight. Obviously, if you have overwhelming odds, it would not be as good. In PvP, there will be situational uses for this because 8 yards is pretty small, and to have people bulked up at 8 yards is not really the greatest out there. So I'm not sure how popular that will be, but it is an option. In all honesty, in PvP, I see Seraphim being the option taken. So Seraphim is an active ability where the light temporarily magnifies your power, including your haste, critical strike, mastery, and versatility by 4,800. Consumes up to 2 charges of Shield of the Righteous and lasts 8 seconds per charge. So I have 3 charges right here. I'm going to go ahead and use this, and I'm going to pull up my stats here. You can see them on the right hand side. You can see them all jump when I use this. Right there. And there we go. And so now everything has been buffed. And I had this awesome shield and everything around me, and I can just go to town now on targets and deal a whole lot more damage than I was going to in the beginning. And that's what I like about this. I think this is, I mean, geez, I just did a judgment hit for 374,000 damage. That is insane for a prot paladin to be able to do that. And it's a 30-second cooldown. By the time it's up again, you're able to have it all up going again. PvPers, as much as you want to be defensive, I think Seraphim is easily the option that you want to take because you become grotesquely overpowered with this. Well, I don't know how overpowered you are exactly, but in my opinion, that's pretty strong in what you're able to do with this. I'm hitting Avenger's Shield for 186,000 without any crits. Crit would hit for 360,000. So it's a lot of damage you can do with Seraphim, and it's a lot of fun. Your charges come up relatively quickly with it, so in all honesty, why not go for it? I mean, you have your Judgments, which is able to reduce the charges on your Shield of Righteousness pretty quickly, and then with Seraphim, basically you're going to be critting more with your Judgment as well, so you're going to be able to do more. And then if you don't have as many charges come up in time, if you start off with 3, you should be able to get it up in time. Bottom line is every 30 seconds you should be able to get 16 seconds of this out, which is a basically a 50% uptime on this, and it's just a lot of damage. So in PvP, Seraphim is the option without question. In PvE, I just don't think it'll be taken because you're taking away your desperately needed defensive mechanism, which is Shield of the Righteous. That is a huge portion that you need to stay alive, and so you're taking that away by getting rid of this with Seraphim. But at the same time, maybe you're an off tank and this is going to be a fight in which will really only require 1 tank, and so you can spec into Seraphim. And then if some weird reason happens, like the tank dies, you can take over. You won't be at maximum efficiency in terms of damage reduction, but you'll still be at a pretty good rate, in which you just have to make sure that you don't use Seraphim anymore as you're tanking. So a lot of options here. Last Defender, I think, is extremely weak in PvP and won't be used. In PvE, it may have its uses in AoE options. Otherwise, I think Righteous Protector will probably be the option in terms of PvE, because you'll get a lot more healing on yourself, and your heal can be very strong when needed. 25% of your missing health is no joke. And then Seraphim definitely for PvP. I think that this is amazing. There may be some people that take Righteous Protector in PvP, but I think Seraphim is really the option to go here. It's just really strong. A lot of burst damage you can do out as a tank, which is awesome. So, with that is everything for PvE talents for a Protection Paladin in World of Warcraft Legion. Let's go ahead and take a look at the PvP talents. Now, I'm beginning to lose my voice here, so hopefully I can make it out through the end of this. Basically, the way honor talents will work in World of Warcraft Legion is you'll start at level 1, you'll work your way all the way up to level 50. As you start at level 1, you will get a Gladiator's Medallion. By the time you are level 10, you'll get Judgments of the Pure. At level 13, you will get Adaptation, and you'll work your way all the way down to Steed of Glory. And then you will rinse and repeat for the last tier at level 46, getting Guardian of the Forgotten Queen as your last talent at 46. And then at 50, you can Prestige and start all over again and get like a pet, a mount, whatever the rank is, and start all over again, start your prestige level all over again, or you can just stay right where you are and say, I'm done, I'm just going to leave my ranks as is, which will be up to your choosing. With that being said, the first tier deer is all about the Honorable Medallion. You will get an Honorable Medallion the first time you enter a battleground for the first time, and it's like a 3-minute heirloom trinket, where you have a trinket, but it's got a 3-minute cooldown. However, you can replace that with a Gladiator's Medallion, which is your normal 2-minute trinket. The second option here is Adaptation, which is all loss of control effects with a duration of 5 seconds or more will activate your Honorable Medallion spell, but only cause it to incur a 60-second cooldown. Yes, I said that very fast. I've had practice in every single video saying it by now. This is an option I really do like. However, do know that you're kind of giving away your option to kind of control when you get out of CC. However, do know that you still have your Honorable Medallion, but if you use it, it will incur, I believe, a 3-minute cooldown on Adaptation, so just take note of that. The last option here is Relentless, which replaces your Honorable Medallion, so I really only see tanks and like a Resto Druid taking this, and the duration of incoming crowd control effects is reduced by 25%. So, it really works out for classes that are able to keep up steady mitigation. Like, if you're able to steadily keep your Shield of Righteous up, Relentless would work really well, but if you're blowing it on Seraphim and stuff like that, maybe Relentless isn't the best for you. In the second tier, we have all the tank abilities, which is Relentless Assault. Being attacked increases your damage by 3%, lasts for 5 seconds, stacks up to 5 times. Not really a big fan of this one. I like the other two better. Inquisition, your Hand of Reckoning has a reduced range, but causes the enemy player to be intimidated, increasing their damage taken by 20% for 6 seconds. Your melee attacks refresh the duration of Intimidated. This is extremely powerful in any type of rated setting, and I see there is absolutely no question in mind that every single rated setting will take this talent if you have a tank, because it is just too strong. It's way too strong. You are able to focus fire someone quickly with this ability, and it will be the option of choice for everyone. In a non-rated setting, I would see people more taking something like Softened Blows. Any non-periodic attack that deals damage less than 10% of your maximum health is reduced by 20%. As a tank, you have a lot of health. Now, Paladins have less health than other tanks, but they still have a lot of health. And with that, they're able to, I mean, the average health for a DPS right now is about 1.5 million, so you have 500,000 more than them. You have like a 33% increase in your health over them. So you're already going to have more health than them in PvP, and that's going to be the way it is. So for them to do 10% of your health in damage, it needs to be a big attack. Sniper Shot, Chaos Bolt, a greater, not greater Pyroblast, but greater, I've already forgotten it, but it's the enhanced Fireball that Fire Mages have. It may be called Greater Fireblast, I can't remember. And even just a regular Pyroblast. So there's a lot of options there that will do more than 10% of your damage, but the majority of stuff will not do more than 10% of your damage. So you basically get a lot of damage reduction, because it all reduces it all by 20%, unless you reach a dot class like Affliction or Shadow, in which they're just going to dot you to death, which will suck. This ends up being not very powerful in that case, but for all other, think of all the other melee classes that that have more a steady stream of damage instead of burst damage. This is going to be a lot of damage reduction. So in non-organized PvP, I can see Softened Blows being easily the option taken. Inquisition, without question, will be the option in rated organized PvP. Relentless Assault, not really sure where it fits in. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of it. In the third tier, we have Shield of Virtue. 25-second cooldown. When activated, your next Avenger Shield will interrupt and silence all enemies within 8 yards of the target. That's awesome. 25-second cooldown on that. Avenger Shield is normally a 14-second cooldown, so you can almost have this up all the time. Or at least a lot of the time, so you have another silence available to you at range for a Paladin. Now, Rebuke is still here. The only thing is that it's melee range, whereas a lot of other tanks and even melee DPS have a ranged version. DKs come to mind, Demon Hunters come to mind. They have a ranged version of their interrupts, so this may be something that you may want to take. Unbound Freedom, passive. Blessing of Freedom also increases movement speed by 20%. I would like this a whole lot more if Blessing of Freedom wasn't so easily dispelled off of a target. So, maybe, I don't know. I'm kind of wary of anything that buffs Blessing of Freedom, to be honest. So, it's an option, though. Increases movement speed by 20%. There's Warrior of the Light, or Warrior of Light. Increases damage done by your Shield of Righteous by 30%, but reduces the damage reduction of the effect by 10%. So, if you really want to really dish out some damage, Warrior of the Light. However, compared to Seraphim, you want to save those Shield of Righteous charges for when you're actually going to be dealing some serious damage, so this might not be the option. In this tier, it may end up being Shield of Virtue as the best option. In the fourth tier, we have Holy Ritual. Allies are healed for 35,000 when you cast a blessing spell on them, and healed again for 35,000 when the blessing ends. Once again, not a real fan of anything that's tied to my blessings. We do have Blessing of Salvation, but that's a 1-minute cooldown if you decide to trinket in, if you decide to have that in PvP, which I wouldn't recommend. Which basically means it is a consistent heal for Blessing of Freedom, but that's it. The rest of the blessings have long cooldowns. I don't see this being very popular. 35,000 is not much. Pure of Heart. When you or allies within 10 yards are healed from any source, they are cleansed of all disease and poisons. So that basically includes your Light of the Protector. Or maybe if you decide to take it, Hand of the Protector instead, you can heal your allies and cleanse them as well. They're cleansed of all diseases and poisons, but remember you also have cleansed toxins. So it's an AoE cleanse. A 10-yard AoE cleanse. It can be really useful. It's definitely better than Holy Ritual. But remember that you already have cleansed toxins. Luminescence, whenever you are healed by any source. All nearby allies within 10 yards are also healed for 30% of the amount. Um, It'll be kind of a toss-up which one I think is better. Pure of Heart or Luminescence, in terms of which one I like better. They're both kind of decent options. They're both better than Holy Ritual, in my opinion. So it's going to be up to you to decide which one you like better. On the 5th tier, we have Hallowed Ground. Your Consecration clears all snare effects on allies within its area of effect on when cast. So this is pretty awesome. It's an AoE cleanse for all snares. And then at the same time, if you have something like Consecrated Ground, it reduces all their movement speed. So it's great AoE rated potential, is Hallowed Ground. We have Guarded by the Light. Reduces the mana cost of your flashlight by 50%, and your flashlight reduces all damage the target receives by 10% for 6 seconds. Stacks up to 3 times. This was already in the game somewhat, somewhere, if I remember correctly. Or it was at one point. It's basically a passive. To be honest, I don't really like this. As a prot paladin, I don't want to be sitting there spamming Flash of Light. So, to be honest, this talent is dead to me. To be honest, I mean, you know, I still have Flash of Light on my bars here, but I still have to cast it and so forth, and I don't want to be sitting here as a protection paladin casting. So, yeah, there may be some uses where someone's being focused and you can try and use some flashlight spam on them and reduce their damage taken, but all in all, it's not something that I want to be doing as a prot paladin. Sacred Duty reduces the cooldown of your Blessing of Protection and Blessing of Sacrifice by 50%. So basically your Blessing of Protection, your Blessing of Protection will be reduced in half. I believe this will also work with Blessing of Spell Warding, which will bring it down to 1.5 minutes. If you have instead the, let's just put Retribution Aura on. If you have Blessing of Protection, this brings it down to 2.5 minutes. Still, that doesn't make Holy Ritual any better. So I wouldn't really be, I wouldn't really like it that much, to be honest. So it's not enough to make the blessings worthwhile for Holy Ritual. So it's good, but honestly, I think the best option here in this tier is easily Hallowed Ground. Which brings us to our final tier. We have Judgments of the Pure. Whenever you cast Judgment on an enemy, a nearby ally within 40 yards is healed for 48,000. That's actually pretty decent heal. To constantly be healing every 5 seconds for 48,000, I think is worth it. It's not as strong as other heals. To give you an idea, Flashlight heals for 150,000. So it's not that big of a heal. It's more kind of like a passive, like, oh, nice little heal here, okay? You know, it's kind of like Holy Ritual. Like, it's a nice little heal, but it really isn't that much in terms of what I can say. This could turn out to be much bigger when you're healed by any source. So if your healer actually heals you, and they get a big crit on you, you're able, if you're near your allies, even though it's a 10-yard range, you're able to heal for a ton through Luminescence. So this is much more useful than even Judgments of the Pure, which is in the final tier. So, I don't know. It's going to be up to you on whether you think this is useful. Honestly, I don't think it's as great. You have Steed of Glory. Your Divine Steed lasts for an additional 4 seconds. While active, you become immune to crowd control effects, and you knock back enemies that you move through. This is awesome! I already love Steed of Glory, and being on a 22.5 second cooldown because I got the reduction from Knights Templar, and I take less damage from Knights Templar, you know, basically, I'm going to be able to have 33% uptime on my Steed of Glory, knocking people around, knocking them silly, and dealing damage at the same time. It's way too cool. Like, I love it. So, Steed of Glory is a real great option here, and definitely better than Judgments of the Pure in terms of what a prop pally has at their disposal. The last option here is Guardian of the Forgotten Queen. It replaces Guardian of the Ancient Kings. It empowers the friendly target with the Spirit of the Forgotten Queen, causing the target to be immune to all damage for 10 seconds. That's pretty strong. That's really strong. This only reduces damage by 50%. So the queen trumps the king. Kind of like its power in chess. So it's a 3-minute cooldown as opposed to a 5-minute cooldown, and you can cast this on other players. So I would say, in terms of rated, battlegrounds, anything like that, any type of rated setting, this is going to be the option of choice. In terms of just sheer fun, randoms, etc., world PvP, Steed of Glory all the way. Anyways, that is everything for all talents for a Protection Paladin in World of Warcraft Legion. My throat is dying. I'm glad I'm able to get through this without completely losing all of it. I hope you guys enjoy the talents that are available to a Protection Paladin. I think they're going to be amazing in World of Warcraft Legion. As of now, I have not yet looked at Blood DK, but as of now, I think they are the best AoE threat generators in the game by far. It's probably not even close. Maybe Brewmaster will be able to catch up to them. Brewmasters, you'll see in the next few videos, they lost some core abilities that made them the most OP AoE threat generators available. So they won't have that anymore. So Protection Paladins may be the way to go. I have not done Blood DK yet, so we'll look at that in the last video of the entire series will be Blood DKs. Otherwise, I think Protection Paladins are a great spot in terms of tanking. I think they have a fun play style. The whole holy enhancing your holy power, or the holy light enhancing your defensive abilities is really cool. I love the theme of it. Otherwise, that's everything for all PvE and PvP talents for a Protection Paladin in World of Warcraft Legion. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next. Tearless out.